Today, we are joined by a man whose story literally could be a movie complete with all the plot twists, from jail to the military to suicide in his family to rock and roll bands, entrepreneurship, being a great dad, and ultimately writing the book, Finding Happy. If you need to find happiness and so much more, tune into this episode.
As always, Kelly, well said. Let's get to the episode. Hey, Chad, welcome to our Fit Over 50 Life family here. And if everybody else is joining us for the first time today, perhaps you stumbled onto this podcast because your intuition got you here. And if you're back for a second, third, or fourth time, we appreciate your attention and your time invested here. We're going to make it worth your while. Hey, Kelly, how you doing today?
I'm doing so good. Thanks, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know me, I get a little long-winded here, but let's just introduce our audience to Chad and tell them what we got coming up for him today. It's a really awesome topic.
Yeah, I would be happy to do that because we're talking about happiness today. Chad is a friend. He's a husband. He's a father of 3. He's an Army veteran. He's an entrepreneur. He is the author of Finding Happy, which is our topic for today. And he's built an international business. He's hosted men's retreats, and now he also owns a ninja gym, and he's really inspiring this younger generation to be strong, body, mind, and spirit. Now we're going to talk about the older generation, the 50 plus. Chad, thanks so much for being with us today.
I'm super excited to be here. Always fun to hang out with you, Kelly and Mark. I've heard a lot of great things and great to finally meet you as well.
So why don't you share with our audience we're going to talk about happiness today, which is definitely a topic that a lot of people are struggling with. But before we get into that, why don't you share, at least with our audience, your backstory of what the heck you went through. You know, I always call it turning our mess into our message. And I think I stole that from Dean. What's his last name? Graciosi, yeah. So I'll give a shout out to him. I took that from him. I'm the best thief in the world when it comes to self-improvement stuff here. So tell everybody about your story, man, because I think it's pretty amazing from what I've read.
Yeah, well, one thing I've learned is that pretty much everybody wants to be happy. Maybe some real grumpy people would say, no, I don't want to be happy. But I think deep down, everybody wants to be happy. And for me, I like to say the first 15 years of my life were pretty normal. I was a pretty happy kid, lived a pretty normal normal life, growing up in central Illinois. And then I discovered alcohol. And like many people, as a teenager, I thought it, gave me some liquid courage, helped me not be shy. And so I found myself kind of living for the weekend, living for the next party. And, that got me in a lot of trouble. So the next 15 years of my life, I made a mess of it from age 16 to about age 30. Found myself at age 30 with 6 warrants for my arrest and had to go to jail for a while. And, I spent some time singing in being a front man in the 90s and rock bands. And so that kind of led me down a path of darkness and despair and depression. And at age 25, I had a younger brother who was 15 that committed suicide. And the first words I said is, it should have been me. And that's just kind of how I viewed life back then as, the best was over. And what did I look forward to? I really didn't. So I really can relate to people that I run across these days that are going through the mess. They're in the middle of the depression. They're in the middle of the struggle, and having gone through it all and on the other side now, it's great to be able to, reach back and help people out and just let them know that, hey man, it's going to get better. It's not the end, even though it might feel like it is right now. So yeah, just a lot of bad decisions for me from age 16 to 30. A lot of it revolving around partying and alcohol and stuff just led me into getting in trouble and divorced and basically bankrupt and pretty much homeless. And so, it was rough walking through the mess, but today I figured out how to go from that mess and to become happy. And so today, I'm my oldest son just turned 21 today. So, happy birthday to Gavin out there. And then my youngest is 14 and my daughter's 17. And, I've been married for over 20 years now. So I've been able to turn it all around. And the third chapter, or the last 22 years now, because I'm 52, have been a lot different than those initial years, especially in my 20s.
So a couple of things. Number one is this: thank you for your service. I mean, it's amazing when people sacrifice what they sacrifice to defend this country. I see There seems to be a lot of optimism about defending this country currently, for sure. Number two is I didn't know there was rock and roll music in the 90s. I mean, was there actually music in the 90s for rock and roll? So I'm not too sure about that. I'm just busting on that. What were the 6 warrants for your arrest? So let's share that.
Yeah, so everything from parking tickets. I mean, I lived in downtown Bloomington, Illinois at one point. And so, it was like you can park on this side of the street from 6 to 8 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but not on this side. And so, I tried to do the right thing for the first couple months living there. And then I ended up just getting tickets. And after a while, I just started, like for a lot of things in my life back then, I just threw it in the glove box and forgot about it. Well, after you have about so long, you don't pay a ticket, it doubles. Then you end up with a warrant for your arrest. So I think I ended up paying like $3,000 just in parking tickets. That was one. Driving on suspended licenses, that's not a smart thing to do either. Public urination, that's probably my favorite one. The bar had closed, I couldn't get in, so I was in the parking lot. Just so happened, I remember talking across this car, and my buddy's like, "Man, the police are pulling up right now." I'm like, "Yeah, right, whatever." And I was peeing on an incline with my door open on the side, so I'm like, no one can see it, but it was just going right down the incline right towards the cop car. So that didn't work out well for me either. So all those things kind of added up, and I got to eventually the bill comes in and I got to pay.
It's interesting. I think today, if they catch you doing public urination, it's actually like almost like a sex offender offense or something like that, because they think it's public. What's the word? Where you expose yourself in public. Back then, though, it is what it is. So out of the 14 days in jail, what do you think the one thing you learned from out of those 14 days in jail?
I'll tell you, the biggest thing I learned was that if I would change, everything would change for me. And so I knew I had to change. And there was actually, there's a band, I don't know if you remember this band, but they're called Hoobastank. You ever heard of that? Hoobastank?
I heard the name. The 90s are a blur for rock and roll for me. So
right, they're a blur for a lot of us. But there's a song called "The Reason," and in that song, the lyrics in that song, I remember it kept playing. It was weird almost, because it was just like it'd start playing, I'd hear it again. It was like it was a message directly to me in that season of my life. And basically, it's all about turning your life around. So the second time I was in jail for 2 weeks, and the final time many years ago, I haven't been back in a long time. I'm happy to say that. When I was in there, I read the entire Bible in the last 2 weeks, and I had a lot of questions. I mean, I'm pretty sure no other human has had this many. This pastor I sat down with afterward, I spent like 2 hours asking him like 50 questions, and it was great because he took the time to sit down and go through and answer all my questions. But I spent, it was like 70 some pages, I think, that I read every day in jail. That was my priority, was to just change everything. I mean, I met my wife and I was ready to start a family, and I just knew I couldn't keep going the way I'd been going, or it wasn't going to go well.
So before you went to jail the second time, let me just get the facts straight. You had already met your wife?
Yes.
So you had an emotional reason to get in a better place, because people just don't out of the blue, unless they feel rock bottom, reach towards the Bible, I think, at that point. So,
well, I knew my wife was a keeper. I knew she was a keeper because I'd known her for like a week. And you're actually at a bar singing karaoke, and these police officers came in and they served me and they took me, and she came and bailed me out that first day. I'm like, okay, she really must love me. She bailed me out. We only known each other a week.
That's pretty incredible.
That's impressive. And I'm going to encourage everyone to go to Facebook and all their social media places and see his just amazing, stunning, beautiful, glowing wife, Jeree. She's incredible. I did not know that part of your story, but wow, that she's definitely a keeper and a special one.
Yeah, especially in the worst moments, if you have somebody like that for you. Hey, Kelly, did you know I went to jail too, or no?
No, do tell.
I always like to tell Kelly stuff first thing here. So let's see. I was 18 years old. I guess I consider somebody I first thought I was in love with, and then she ended up cheating on me. So I was out hanging out with my friends, and we were all drinking, doing stupid stuff, as you know, Chad, is the things you do. So he was over her house. So what we all do, we did we went there. We had bats and we had hammers, and we beat the living poop out of his car and got arrested later. And I spent about a weekend in jail. I had an Iron Maiden shirt on. That's a real bad band, Chad. Okay, so I was never more embarrassed in my life. I couldn't go to college full time. I ended up going part time and working construction because I had to pay off attorney fees and everything else. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting experience. It definitely shifts you, right? It's like you start to realize this is not what I want out of life here for sure. So I think the thing that I learned out of it is that I had to take responsibility for my life. So I'm hoping that is where we're at with you. And you are now inspiring a whole bunch of young men, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. That's awesome. So Kelly, you got to go to jail to get
I
things
have
going
not
here.
been in
Okay.
jail. I have friends who have been in jail. I mean, some of the top personal development people in the world that teach this stuff that have been in jail, and it was still hard for them. And, I mean, they got there and they were suicidal. They wanted to end it, and even with a lifetime of training of how to, be strong mentally and overcome, it was still tough being behind bars, especially unjustly in one person's case that I'm thinking of. So I give you both credit that it was a massive turnaround point. That's a big deal.
Okay, so that happened. You got married. You raised a family. When did your calling kind of kick in here? How long is that? How long did it gnaw at you before you said, I got to do something with this? Or was this something instantaneous that you felt connecting with people?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of just this constant. I think it kind of started for me. The journey really was with personal development, and it was with I just need to find a way to become better, which leads to, of course, I need to get around better people, and I need to just put more just new things into my mind so that I can become a new person. And a lot of that for my wife and I revolved around us just getting away from our current environment, right? That environment had gotten us to where we were. And so we needed to get into a new environment. So I went back into the military because I was in the military right out of high school for 3 years. And then I took an 11-year break. And then in 2005, I go back into the military. So that got us from Illinois to North Carolina. And I was able to we found new friends. We started a group at a local church that we found, young married and engaged couples. And then we started just creating new friendships. And that really, started a family. So it was just a new chapter. It was shutting the door on the old life, starting a new life, and going through that. So that was probably where all that started. And then, from 2005 to 2012, I was focused on my military career. I finished my degree. I went to officer candidate school. I became an officer. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do until they drag me away from the military, because I loved it, every bit of it. And then in 2012, a few different things happened where I was like, I couldn't get out of the military fast enough. I mean, I had a close friend that we all kind of looked at as Captain America. This was the guy, Chase Prasnicki. He was a West Point quarterback. He was smarter than everybody. He was faster than everybody. And you're just like, this guy, nothing could ever happen to him. He'd just been married and he went over to Afghanistan. He was there just a couple days and hit an IED and he was done right there. So that kind of made me start questioning, is this really safe? So that was kind of the first thing. The second thing is that we were getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan, and I had this big vacation planned with my young daughter at the time and my son, who, had gotten a little older, and we had it all planned out. And then we had an incompetent commander who had forgotten some training, and he said, oh, we have to go do this training. Leave is canceled for everyone. Of course, the non-refundable tickets and all that, I just got to eat that, and that wasn't fun. And so now I'm in Afghanistan for a couple months, and my youngest child, who was 2 at the time, he needed to have emergency surgery, like just start hemorrhaging in the middle of the night. And I'm finding out about this. My wife makes a post, please pray for us, on social media. It's not like you have Wi-Fi everywhere you go in Afghanistan, but I happen to be in an airport between trips where I was traveling to help train the Afghans how to shoot their artillery. And so I read this and I immediately think, I'm in an airport. I need to reroute my flight. I need to get home. Like, my wife needs me, right? If she's ever needed me in my life, it's right now. And I'm 7,300 miles from home. And of course, the military said, well, we have a mission first, right? And so mission then family. We'll get you home eventually. So I had to fly the wrong direction, spend a couple days filling out paperwork. By the time I got to that same airport, like 3 days had gone by. And so the whole flight home, I'm thinking, I'm done. I can't be in this situation ever again. So that leads to, well, what's next, right? So my wife and I were able to go. I got home on Christmas Eve, which was cool because my oldest son had been praying Dad would be home for Christmas. And my wife's like, that's not happening, but it happened. And so that was really cool for him. And a couple weeks later, I'm at this convention. I'm sitting there and they're basically like, if you do A, B, and C, you can get a $25,000 bonus and you can do this. So my side income went from, which was a couple grand at the time, to $9,000 the next month, to over 20 the next month, to over 40 the next month. And so at that point, it was real easy for me to turn in what's called a refrad packet when you're an officer, turn in a packet and then walk away from the military. And I got out of the military 2014, and I've been a full-time entrepreneur ever since then. So it's been quite the journey, quite the learning experience. Of course, as an entrepreneur, you have to constantly be doing personal development and constantly be firming up your beliefs and, your work ethic and your discipline and resilience and all those types of things. So it's been a great, great journey the last 10 years. And then, of course, learning how to be a mid-40s and going into my 50s. I mean, I had a 52nd birthday about a month ago now. So
You look incredible. I was saying to Mark before the show, I'm like, I don't know if Chad's 50. He looks so good. I'm not sure. He's probably
She
like,
said, I don't think Chad's
42.
50.
I'm
So
like, I was thinking,
we'll let him in, though, even though.
I'll email you my birth certificate after this,
Yeah.
just so you know. But
we love the wisdom at any age. We're trying to save all the mistakes we can ourselves.
Hey, I guess you guys, you're familiar with Ron White, right? And the
Yeah.
thing he does, because that's Afghanistan, right?
Afghan. Yes,
Mhm.
Afghan
Afghan
memory.
wall. Yep.
So yeah, that's pretty moving, man. An incredible story. Again, appreciate the sacrifices you and the family have made for this country. So you get out, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing all this stuff. What led you down this path of the happiness? We call it Playbook here. And why did you decide to do that? And I think you really work a lot with men, right?
I do. Well,
Thank you, Chad. All I do is sit on these podcasts, and
We have
it's
a
all
lot.
about the ladies. Okay.
Do you have a lot
Finally,
of
I got
guests
somebody on here
working
that can talk to the men.
I knew
Okay,
you'd be
ladies, don't you dare
excited.
tune out, ladies, because you need to get your men better so that you have a better life at home. So don't
This
Well,
one
disappear on us.
it's
Okay.
funny
works
when
for women.
you spend so much time hanging out with all the ladies, you learn how to hang out with ladies, and a lot of men need help on what to say and what to do hanging out with ladies. So I've been able to, help my oldest son in that area and a lot of men, and because some of the businesses my wife and I did, I was just kind of her arm candy, I think, in one of them, where I'm just kidding, I wasn't arm candy, but she was. It was mostly female driven. It was some of the products, and we had a wrap, like not a chicken wrap, but like a wrap it around your waist and tight and tone and firm, and women would lose inches and start crying. And that's kind of when I got into that. And I'm like, I'm not wrapping anybody, but I'll watch, so it was interesting to kind of go through that with her, but I don't remember where I was heading with that, but that was a great journey.
We're talking about
So-
happiness. Yeah.
So, what would you say your lowest moment was in all that time period? I mean, obviously, losing a family member is probably one of the lowest moments you could do, and I can't even imagine that. I'm sorry you went through that, and I'm sure that shifted your way you look at things. But what would you consider the lowest point? And then let's bring this thing into where we're at now and how.
Yeah, it was that.
People.
It was definitely that season of life, because I was so personally depressed through that season when my brother actually committed suicide, that looking back, I can see all the moments in time where he was really, without asking, he was reaching out for help, but I wasn't available to help him, And one thing I'll say is, anytime you're close to anyone that commits suicide or passes or has something horrible happen, there's always a little bit of, what could I have done differently? What could I have done? It's a little, questions we ask ourselves. How could I have handled the situation different? And some of the guilt and the shame that we deal with being that close to someone and going, man, I missed it, or they passed. So I was at a very, very low point at that. I mean, I was at the height of being in rock and roll music and just partying all the time. And I'd just gone through a divorce. And, it's interesting because a lot of times the things we think will make us happy, when we get to that, we realize it's not going to make us happy at all. And I think a lot of people assume that happiness is this thing out there that we need to go find and obtain. Maybe it's a career or a certain amount of money, but it's interesting, isn't it, when you find these famous rock stars and these famous actors, and they're just as depressed as anybody else. So it has nothing to do with fame and fortune and all that. It comes from inside us. Happiness can only come from inside. It can't come from outside.
So yeah, let's dig into that deeper. So things that we perceive to make us happy externally in maybe our 30s and 40s. Now that you're tapping into the 50s here, it definitely shifts a lot.
It does.
So Kelly, you were going to say something or add something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to go back to the suicide thing. I mean, my kids are in their early mid-20s now, and they both have experienced loss of friends with suicide. And I'm always trying to give them some practical things, like if you have any idea that someone's depressed or they're not showing up for work, or what would you just say to the audience at any age if you notice someone's depressed or saying things that are not healthy? Any practical tips?
Yeah, for one, just listen. I mean, a lot of times when people are expressing the signs, and unfortunately, a lot of the time, it's the quieter ones that actually commit suicide. They don't talk about it; they just do it, and you're like, "Whoa!" You know, how many times have we heard about this from someone? We're just shocked. We're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know they were depressed. I didn't know they were upset." You know, some of the other people that just really want attention. You know, they're saying, "I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that," and a lot of times they don't. You know, we still want to take the time and listen, of course, and be aware of that, but a lot of times it's just the real subtle things. It's someone that just you're used to talking to, and all of a sudden they're kind of becoming distant, or they're going through something pretty severe, but they're not really reacting. They're just kind of becoming kind of cold and numb to it all. Those are the signs. And I feel like through life, I've really tuned in. After that happened with my brother, one of my things was I want to make sure that I'm not around people that do this again. And so I've taken the time. You know, there was a couple times in the military, we had soldiers that were going through something, and I just grabbed them up and I said, "You're spending the whole weekend with me. We're going to this, or you're just going to sit. You're just going to be with me. Get in my car. You're coming with me." And two guys in particular, they still reach out and they still say thank you from years ago. So I wanted to write a book, The Finding Happy. I wanted to write a book that I knew if someone was really depressed and just got a hold of this book, that it would at least give them enough hope. Because you and I know that if someone's depressed, if they just hang out long enough, they just stay, they keep breathing long enough, eventually they're going to go into a different season, right? And this is a big reason why when you look at suicide rates, it's normally people that are either under 30 or like over 70. Like those are the two age groups that commit suicide the most. I was doing the study. I'm doing a mentor thing at the local jail here, where I get to go in and talk to veterans that are in jail. And I had to go through some training, and part of the training was showing those statistics and things. So that's always interesting. But for me, it's funny now because it's not really funny, but I look back and I go, man, in the moment, or think of like your kids, Kelly, when you're in your 20s, you haven't lived much life yet. So everything's so intense and it can kind of overwhelm. And a lot of suicide is it's an instant, quick decision. Like with my brother, I mean, his girlfriend had broke up with him the day before. And so, you know, he had a gun on him and went into her house and threatened he was going to shoot himself. And she said, "I'm calling the cops right now," and called the police and called my sister. And my brother went out, and he was only 15, but had taken my sister's car, and he literally bottomed the car out in this park, and all the clutch fluid drained out. He was stranded there with nothing but a gun and nowhere to go. And so he wrote a note, you know, to each of us and shot himself. But yeah, so if I can help people, and I think a lot of the message is just, hey, just understand that it will get better. Understand these feelings, this overwhelming feeling you're experiencing right now will go away. It'll get less. You just got divorced. So have hundreds of thousands of other people. And guess what? The majority of them made it through. And so will you if you just keep going to bed and waking up and just take the little one step at a time.
So important to be that friend, you know, for us to be that friend to someone else and try and have a hyper awareness to that. And one of the things I would tell my kids was, if you have any concern at all that someone's, you know, thinking of hurting themselves, or make an appointment with them, go, "Hey, next Tuesday, let's have coffee," or, "Hey, let's jump on the video game tonight." Just something that they've got to look forward to that'll just keep them going until the next whatever. Just get them to the next thing and keep going. Because you're right, the valley is not forever. It will end. You get back to the mountaintop. I love that. Yeah, it's important to be that friend. Awesome. So, Chad, I love the book, Finding Happy. You actually signed it for me. It's signed by you in here. So thank you for that. So, and you have 10 keys in here to living an extraordinary life. Can you pick one, maybe the one that's your favorite or the most impactful, or whatever bubbles up that you think our audience would need to hear right now?
Yeah, they're each very, very important. So I would highly recommend get the book and just wrap your mind around each of the 10 keys, because even if you're happy now, you'll be happier, and it'll equip you to kind of tangibly put something to, like, oh, wow, I didn't know that before. That's why I'm happy. I'm happy because I'm a giver, right? Because it's better to give than to receive, which kind of goes if a selfless society and things where it's like me, and I want. And I mean, and kids are, one of the first words they learn is no and mine, right? So it's kind of where we start naturally, right? I call it drift mode or default mode. By default mode, we're selfish. And so until you actually start playing around with being a giver and you go, wow, it's actually feels better to give than it does to receive. So that's one of the keys, right? I mean, things like people say, don't get your hopes up. I mean, we live in a world where the majority of people would say, don't get your hopes up because you might be let down. Well, one of the keys is always have your hopes up, because as long as you have hope, what else do you need? As long as you believe that tomorrow could be better than today, then, oh my gosh, that's easy. That's easy to show up tomorrow, but if you're a professional football player and you're in your third year and you're 23 years old and you have a career-ending knee injury, you could very easily go, man, it's over. My life's over. I just blew out my knee. Everything I trained for, my whole life's over. But it's not. So as long as you have hope that tomorrow because there's always a new season, there's always new things. You can always rediscover yourself, reinvent yourself. So, dreaming big, it doesn't cost any more to dream big than does to dream small. I mean, think about waking up every day thinking, I'm working my way towards this that I'm excited about, and I'm moving towards a positive direction. And to me, that's just, it's kind of like going to the gym, right? I mean, everybody wakes up and you can go to the gym or not go to the gym. You can drop and do 10 push-ups or not do 10 push-ups. But has anyone ever felt worse for doing 10 push-ups or going to the gym? I mean, in my experience, everyone I know is only feeling better. You're going to have that little dopamine release. Nobody's anti-dopamine that I've met.
Yeah, that's true. Hated that workout, said no one ever. It's the ones you miss that you regret, not the ones that you do.
Right.
And I think one thing you hit on that is really key and important that I want to reiterate is this: seasons. And I don't think I really understood this or accepted this until I went through a pretty rough season of divorce I just went through for 6 lovely years. And you understand that it is seasons. Things, I love it because, I always say things are never as bad as they seem. And they're never as good as they seem. Okay, so when it's good, always ask more of yourself. When it's bad, understand it will pass. It's kind of the philosophy. So, well said, man. Well said. So you're writing the book. How long did it take you to write the book?
Well, first I sat on the idea for 6 years. I thought, finding happy. I'm kind of happy now. I could actually document being extremely depressed and suicidal to feeling great now, and kind of being the person that people come around me, they're like, you're always so optimistic. You're always so happy. You're like positive Polly, So I sat on it there. I'm like, man, who am I to write a book? It was kind of funny because when I first joined the Army, I was like, oh, these officers, I could never be an officer. Who am I to try and become an officer? You go to a church and you think about becoming friends with the pastor. Oh, who am I to hang out with some pastors, just discount myself? Well, I was kind of the same thing. Who am I to write a book? I'm not an author. I didn't get straight A's in school or whatever I was thinking that you had to be, at the time to be an author. I'm like, I can't do that. And so I sat on it for 6 years, and then I hired somebody to kind of walk me through the process because I thought I needed somebody as a coach. I've learned that if I want to be in great shape and I'm going to spend the time anyway to go to the gym, why not have a professional guide me through it? So I thought, well, it'd be nice to have someone that coached me. So I had a lady, and we had weekly calls, and, she would drag things. I got done with what I thought was done with the book. And she said, okay, that's a good article. Let's expand on some of these concepts. We can't write a 10-page book. I'm like, oh, how many pages this thing got to be? I mean, it's the biggest thing I've written in my life, And so we just kind of went through that. So that took about a year to go through that process. And then she handed me off to Clover Croft Publishing, and they walked me through, I think it was a 6-stage process of the editing process and book cover and the layout and ordering, because I did it was kind of middle lane between a full-blown publisher and self-publishing. So it's a professional product, but I didn't have, where someone was determining the cover for me and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of in the middle, independent publishing, I guess.
I think it's interesting you said, sorry, Kelly, were you going to say something?
That's okay. Go ahead.
Interesting that you said that I spent 6 years, thinking about the book and who am I to write a book. And I think so many people struggle with that. What do I have to, say to people? Who's going to listen to me? I was in jail. I was, this, I was that. that's why people are going to pay attention to you, because you went through all that and you got through it and you have a message now. So very, very cool. So then that turned into, when did you start working with people and then teaching people and offering what you offer now?
Yeah. So, I mean, it just kind of organically happened along the way. People start reaching out and, thank you for the book. It changed my life. And then can you help me with this? Can you help answer this? And so that just kind of led into where I, coach and teach personal development to a lot of different people, a lot of times in groups, but sometimes one-on-one. And then, with moving here to Texas, I lived in Tennessee area for about 15 years. We moved here in 2022 to hang out with some close friends. And one of my buddies was a 24-year Special Forces officer. You should have him on here sometime. He has some great stories from being in the military. But we were working out together at LA Fitness, and one morning he said, "Hey, how would you feel about doing a franchise together?" And I'm like, "I've got the time, I've got the energy. What would we do?" And so we got a franchise broker, went through probably 8 different companies. And at the time, my youngest son was attending USA Ninja Challenge here in town, and then his 2 boys came to the same place. So we already knew all the employees. We already pretty much knew how the place ran and what it would require to fix it up and stuff like that. So we decided to buy that, September of last year. So that's another little fun thing that we do, is we mentor and coach 2-year-olds all the way up to 17-year-olds, how to be more physically fit, mentally fit. And a lot of times that it has to do with, helping out the parents too. So that's led into some great relationships and conversations as well. So it's just kind of the whole world I see is, just who can I help? If I'm helping people, I think Zig Ziglar said it right. If you help enough other people get what they want, by default, you get everything you want. And I get a lot of fulfillment out of just serving and helping other people. And sometimes I get paid, sometimes I don't, but I just do it anyway.
The ninja community is really special. My kids came up in that community, and then I actually coached and worked with nutrition with a bunch of the people in the Dallas area. And my kids wound up becoming ninja coaches when they were in high school. But it's just it's a really interesting, beautiful community of people. When you talk about environment and just surrounding yourself with the right people. So I love that you're fostering that with the younger community. So this is something you're going to franchise around Texas, the country? Do more of
Well,
these?
we're a franchisee. So there's 38 USA Ninja Challenge locations currently. And then that's led to, I'm good friends with Sam Sand now, who lives in Houston, and he's got 3 gyms. He's been on like 9 seasons of the first 15 seasons, I think, of Ninja Warrior. But, it's becoming an Olympic sport too. It's going to be in the pentathlon in 2028, and then 2032, Ninja is going to be a unique Olympic sport. So, but it's a great sport. I mean, there's a lot of, especially here in Texas, you got football, you got baseball, and everybody's competing all the time and trying to get on the teams. But here we have, it's just a phenomenal sport. Everybody roots each other on. Everybody loves each other. And it's something I've done with my son since he was 5, and he's 14 now.
It was my first all-nighter. I've never pulled an all-nighter my entire life, but my kids wanted to go. And when they did the ones in Houston a few years ago, we stayed up all night watching it be filmed. It was pretty awesome to see that experience for them. My first all-nighter.
You all got to let us in on, is Ninja, this is from the Ninja TV show. Am I correct in saying
American
that?
Ninja Warrior.
American Ninja Warrior, and the gyms are spun off of the show, or vice versa?
Yeah.
Because I've never seen a ninja gym. Is it something more localized where you guys are at in Texas, or no?
It's expanding through the country, but I mean, here in Texas, it's kind of one of the first gyms was here. We probably have, just in Dallas, Austin, Houston area, there's probably 20, 25 gyms, but there's still a lot of bigger cities across the country that really don't support it much yet, but it's up and coming.
They get a huge fan base for some of the celebs, the stars that compete on those shows. It's pretty incredible. So,
and I have a friend who's 50, who's a doctor who competes. He's actually 55. We'll have to have Dr. Mike on. He's a Ninja Warrior guy.
That's pretty cool.
And my personal trainer came to the gym one time and saw my son flipping around. He's like, "I'm strong," but he's like, "That's real strength." He's like, "I'm not trying that." Because, your grip strength and just shoulders to throw yourself up and through the air 7, 8 feet to grab onto something else. I mean, that takes a whole different type of strength.
Yeah, and that's an injury that if you get one from there, you're going to be healing from that from a bit. So, but yeah, those athletes are pretty. You ever notice they're all the same? They're all like 158 pounds, and they're compact and they're kind of, they're not like 6'5" or anything. Those guys just never seem to be able to put it together. So,
Right.
That's true. So,
all right. So now we're talking. Go ahead, Kelly. You were going to talk about something?
yeah, and I was thinking back to the 6 years that it took you to decide about the book, and I'm wondering what your thoughts were about happiness before when you started thinking about write the book, and then how has that evolved? Like today, does happiness mean something different to you than it did when you had the idea of even just writing the book? What does that look like?
Yeah. So first it was funny because the title, I was just like finding happy. And I was like, who would hear those two words and think not interested? So I'm like, okay, this appeals to the masses right here. Right. Cause I'm like finding happy. And then I started writing the book and I was like it kind of became like almost like a covert evangelism tool. And through the first half of the book, I don't really talk about my faith much or anything like that. But then, I found a lot of people and a lot of people read my book. They read the book and they come to me and they're like, I want to know more about this faith thing. They're not quite there yet, but they start reading it and they're like, I catch their attention. And for me, and I don't know about you guys' story, your background, but for me, when I was growing up, I kind of looked at a lot of religion as just being, kind of just a bunch of fake people. Cause that was my inner circle, the people around me that said they were Christians or they were whatever. They were, they had a smile on your face and then behind your back, they're doing all the things that didn't seem very Christian-like. There was a lot of hypocrites, including my own family at the time. So, I was just like, I had one friend, he told me, well, when I joined the church, we can't be friends anymore because, I'm drinking and smoking with you. And I saw we can't be friends when I joined the church. I'm like, that sucks, bro. I'm like, hopefully you put that off for a long, long time before you join the church. So as I went through this whole process of finding happy, I realized that what I had found in the process for myself was joy, which is like better than happiness, right? But I didn't want to title the book Finding Joy because I was like, yeah, some people be like, nah, I don't want to deal with that. So I was like, we'll call it Finding Happy. And along the way, they'll discover how they can actually have joy as well if that's something they're interested in.
So what's the difference between happiness, joy, and let's say fulfillment in your eyes?
Yeah. So in my eyes, happiness is fleeting. Happiness is based off circumstances. It's a feeling, So and feelings come and go, right? People fall in love, fall out of love, fall back in love, fall out of love. There's things we can do to feel in love more than falling out of love for sure. But it's all based around how do I feel, right? Joy is something that is steady and that you can have. You can have joy even in times and situations where it doesn't make sense to people who've never experienced joy, right? You can actually be in the mess and have joy. You're not looking to have happiness in the mess, but you can be in the mess and experience joy because it's a deep thing that's not based off of circumstances. So that's what I would say for me. The difference is between happiness and joy. Happiness comes and goes. I'm happy.
And one more thing on fulfillment. Where does fulfillment fit in that?
Yeah, I think for me, fulfillment is it's an ongoing thing I'm experiencing, an ongoing thing that I'm chasing. It's kind of like I know Jim Rohn used to say this, and I love it. He says, "Be happy with what you have while you pursue all that you want." So fulfillment is something because I don't think we're ever fully filled. I think fulfillment is something that's a constant goal that we're after, but yet we can have peace and we can have joy along the way. And we can definitely enjoy our life because we all want to enjoy our life in the now, but we also want to pursue the next thing, the better thing, right? But there's a tension there. There's a balance because you can have both. Some people spend so much time on what they don't have yet, they miss out. But then some people become so complacent with where they are now, they're missing out on what their calling is or what's out there that's still, it's kind of like for me, I don't really believe in retirement. And the reason I don't believe in retirement is because statistically, once someone retires, it's almost like they're handing in their life. They're turning in their life. All right, I'm ready. Come take me, Jesus. And I'm just like, I don't want to just have the come take me, Jesus moment. I want to, when I get drug into the nursing home, I'm going to start the first church of the last chances, just keep it rolling for as long as possible.
And I think you made some amazing points. I hope everybody picked up on happiness is a temporary emotion. So is sadness. So is anger. There's 300 different emotions on the emotions wheel. Fulfillment is you're shooting towards those goals. And I'm a big proponent of don't focus on happiness, focus on fulfillment. But then you actually add this caveat in there of joy, which I really like the way you worded that. So even in the worst situations, if you're feeling good in your own skin and all that fun stuff, you can experience joy in sometimes the most inopportunistic moments in your life.
Yeah, it's that supernatural peace. A good friend of mine.
Peace. That's what we're leading to here, and that's what I think is missing for a lot of people in our age group, for sure.
Yeah, it's really important and worthy of pursuing for sure, because it's attainable. Everyone can have peace.
Kelly?
So for the people who are waking up now and they're hearing this podcast and you're like, okay, I'm somewhere 50 plus and I've kind of been coasting, so I'm getting a little inspired by what I'm hearing here. What would be some practical things that you would tell them to do?
Man, I love it. I'm reading a book right now called, and I just found out the guy's going to be at Kyle Wilson's in October, I think. But the title of the book is that 100 is the new 30. So think about that. Who says that because you're 50, you can't be in the best shape of your life? You can't make more money this year or next year than you ever have in your life? That you can't be happier in your 50s than you ever were in your 30s or 40s? Who says that? And I say, cancel that crap. If anybody told you that you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that, I'm saying somebody has. Lots of people have made more money in their 50s or been healthier or been happier. So if someone can do it in their 50s, how come we can't do it in our 50s?
And then on the other side of that, what are some things that people are doing that maybe are really destroying their health, their relationships, that we need to start things, we need to stop things? What are some things you would go, you know what, this is not serving you. I've seen enough men or women do this. You got to hold up the mirror and stop.
Yeah, well, I'll start with, one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. For some of that, especially in your 50s, your result's probably going to get worse, right? So maybe when you're younger in 20s and 30s, you can just eat whatever and not exercise. I mean, now's a good time. 50s is a good time. If you want to be able to move in your 80s and 90s and be able to pick up your great grandchildren, you got to start thinking about some of those things now. And, so it doesn't take a lot, it's the slight edge philosophy that doing this, the little things, the little 1% things that to the positive are going to take you in this trajectory going up and to the right. And the 1% things are going to take you down and to the right. And the older you get, the harder it is to recover from some of that. So I would say just that one thing, what is the one thing you can change on a daily basis? If we're talking about health specifically, right? The one thing you can cut out, that you're not eating anymore. And if you have a thought about eating that, do something to the opposite. Go walk for a mile. Be like, I thought about eating donuts again. I'm going to go walk a mile today instead. Just the one thing, because it will. And when you feel well, you do well. And the better you feel, the better you're going to do. And so it's very, very important. I'm focused on fitness because I understand what happens mentally when I'm fit or not fit. And, I've been, I'm about 170 right now, but I've been 205, just a few months ago. And I can tell you, it's when you're not in shape, you don't feel, your body doesn't feel good. And so then you don't want to do much. And it becomes easier and easier just to not do anything, which makes you not feel better because you gain more weight. So that would be, Kelly, something I would say is just, we all know, we at the end of the day, look in the mirror and go, what are 3 things I did today that I probably shouldn't have done? And then just don't do that tomorrow.
That's good. I had a coaching call right before this, and I asked a female client, if I were to have a camera follow you around for 7 days, what are the things that you are doing that are not serving the next level person that you want to become? And it just kind of makes you go, wow, what? Okay, yeah. let me stop those things. And then what are you not doing that would serve the person you want to become? Asking better questions gets you better answers sometimes.
So you predominantly deal with men, correct, Chad?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah. What do you notice dealing with men as a mindset that might be different than dealing with women? And what do you notice if they're over 50 versus under 50?
I think one of the biggest challenges, I had a conversation with my son that turned 21 today about this the other day. It's this generally speaking, right, is that there's this apathy, indifference, just kind of drift mode. I kind of call it default. Default mode is drift mode. Especially in America, it's easy to survive. It's easy to not starve to death and not die from a disease for the most part. It's getting tougher from the disease piece, but so I think that it's just real simple for people to get in a routine they're not really happy with and just go through the motions, but not take action. And I don't know why that is exactly. I mean, I know we have a lot of distractions coming at us, and you kind of get into your routine where you go to work from 9 to 5, you come home, you sit back in your chair, you have a couple beers, and you watch your 3 or 4 favorite shows every night. And, and you're saving a little bit of money so you can do your annual 2-week vacation to wherever or whatnot. But it's frustrating to me because I meet someone and I'm like, man, you have so much potential. You have this gift, you have this calling, and I see you don't have to be stuck where you are. You could go from here to here pretty easily. But that getting someone to move, because it has to be their idea, right? They have to want to do it. But getting someone to want to move, and we go back, we call it, I've always just kind of called it the why. Your why has to be stronger than your excuses. And so it's almost like a pendulum, right? Like a scale. And so you got to load up the why side, and it has to be strong enough. It's got to be a lot stronger than those excuses, because we all can have excuses, and we all battle it. We all wake up and have excuses. That's where commitment and resolve have to kick in. I mean, commitment is doing what you said you would do long after the feeling you said it in has left you. That's tough. Discipline's tough. I mean, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is Hebrews 12:11, which talks about no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of peace and righteousness for those who have been trained by it. So we all want the fruit and the results of discipline, but the work it takes, it's why, January 1st, every gym's full, but, stick around, because by March, it's going to be half empty again every single year.
If people think that word discipline is a dirty word, it is necessary if you want to live a life that's healthy and peace-filled and joyful. You have to have some disciplines in your life.
What you don't want to do in the beginning, you actually want to do it later. That's what's crazy about it, because you're like, I don't want to wake up early and go to the gym. And then after a while, you're like, I can't wait to go to the gym. So it's like it flips. It's just, you got to put in the time, you got to pay the price. And eventually you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I've developed this discipline. What's the next one I can do? And you get excited about creating new disciplines in your life because you experience the results and the fruit, and then you don't want to go back after you live that life.
You feel bad if you miss it. And Chad, you kind of just threw out there that you were over 200 and now you're about 30 pounds less. That was just kind of a little throw out there. I'm sure our audience wants to know. How'd you do that in your 50s?
Well, the big one was food. And it was funny because I didn't know that I was battling with high blood pressure for over a decade. And I'm one of those stubborn people. Like, I just don't want to be on a medication. I have to take forever. I need to figure this out. And so I'd, battle, and I'd bring it down a little bit and then go back up and bring it down a little bit. And then I ran into this guy. I was at the gym, and I recommend this for anybody. If you're at the gym and you see someone that you want to look like, or if you're at Walmart and you see someone that's kids are the type of kids you want your kids to be, like, just go up and ask them and say, hey, how do you look like that? Like, what are you eating? What are you working at? I saw this guy in the gym. He was doing like real light weights, but he was doing like 1,000,000 reps. And I'm like, no one works out like that. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it that way? And so I called him up, and I got on a meal plan with him. So he started doing meal plans, and I've started eating at 52. I've eaten things I've never had in my entire life, like beets, like chickpeas, tofu. Here in a little bit, I'm going to make some tofu, right? I mean, just stuff that, if it wasn't for like him saying, eat this and you'll lose the weight. Because I was a wrestler, so I can lose weight. I can starve myself and not eat for a week fast. But he put me on specific things. And what I didn't realize is that instantly, within a week, my blood pressure was way down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this whole time I could have been juicing. We bought a juicer a year ago. I never used it. I never juiced anything in my life. Now I love watching the thing. I'm like, the stuff pours out the one side and then the juice comes out the other side. I'm like, this is so cool. Why did I never do this before? So if you're not juicing, you got to start juicing.
I got to break mine out.
I love it.
So could you imagine Chad sitting down with his service buddies eating tofu? Oh my God, you would have got so much pushback on that, man. So I guess that comes with feeling comfortable in your own skin as you start to get older here. So fantastic, fantastic. And beets are good, man. That's probably the best inflammatory food or anti-inflammatory food you could put in. If you ever take beetroot powder before the gym in the morning, it's phenomenal. So,
Yeah. And that's like apple cider vinegar. My wife's been trying to get me on that forever. Just have a couple capfuls of it and I would drink it. And I'm like, this is so disgusting. I couldn't do it. But if you add a little lemon in there and you put like a spoonful of honey in there, it changes the complete taste and it's actually good. I like it now. And I found that with a lot of this different, like you're just going to eat beets by themselves or carrots by themselves. But if you put a salad in there and you start putting some paprika on there, a little cayenne pepper, drizzle some honey across that, you can make things that seem like they'd be nasty taste really good. You just have to find the right mixture. And I'm just happened to figure that out like at 52 for the first time in my life.
Well, you're balancing a lot of things well. I mean, entrepreneurship, family, you still have younger kids, you got a new business. I know you and your wife have a business together. You're keeping healthy. What would you say to someone whose life just feels out of balance and they're not able to manage the healthy things like you do?
Yeah, so the first thing on that is I'd say alignment. I don't really believe personally in balance because you can think you're balanced and then when your kids get sick and they're home from school and your whole week gets shot, right? Because now you're focused on your sick kids. So I don't really believe in balance. I believe in alignment. And so as an entrepreneur, especially the calendar is my boss. So when something goes in the calendar, I'm careful what I put in the calendar because once it's there, to me, that's a commitment and I'm going to honor that commitment. But I think for me, it's my faith first. I've got to be good. I've got to do my quiet times in the morning. I've got to go to church on Sundays. I need to get filled up. It's kind of like the oxygen mask come down in the airplane, put it on you first. Don't worry about your wife and your kids because you got to take care of you first or you can't help anybody else, right? So I'm no good if I'm not filled up spiritually. So first that, and then my marriage, in marriage, I charge my phone every day. I'd be an idiot to not charge my marriage every day. So, a great guy, if you're going through struggle in marriage, look up his Mort Fertel. The only Mort I've ever heard of, M-O-R-T, last name Fertel, F-E-R-T-E-L. Learning some stuff from him has been a game changer for me in my marriage. Like talk charge. So I charge my marriage every day with just deep conversation with my wife, touch charge. My wife likes to have her back rub, likes to have, hugs, hold hands, just, of course, everybody likes the other kind of touch too, but the charge in your marriage, like that's very, very important. And then like a weekly, got to have alone time, away from your kids and stuff and to charge your marriage. Again, if we're going to charge our phone, charge your marriage. So then kids. So I've got, my relationship with God, my wife, my kids. And then after that, when those three things are intact, everything else is easy. Now, if you feel overwhelmed, you might have to, and you don't have enough margin, you feel like you're stretched too thin, then you have to kind of have a look at that and say, okay, what are we, what's the bang for my buck I'm getting here? Is this something I need to give up? Because I do know people, Kelly, and I used to be one of those guys I would say yes to everything. And I've had to learn over time to say no to some things because I just can't do everything all the time.
So you had mentioned earlier about your initial exposure to religion and, kind of everybody you met was kind of hypocritical, or not everybody, at least a handful of people, enough to create a bias. And that is something that resonated with me because that was kind of my story with it. I was like, well, these people are, supposedly going to church, doing all these things, but they're the most unethical people I've run into here. How important was it to find God for you to find joy in your life?
I don't think it's possible for anyone to find it without God, personally. I think you can have fleeting moments of peace, but to have true, deep, supernatural peace that, and you start to know it, you start to see it. People, I had this one aunt. It's funny because we back in, I don't know about you guys, when I was growing up, we'd have family reunions, a few times a year, usually around holidays. And so you'd already have the baggage, going into it or whatever, right? Because my mom would talk to her sister who would talk to her brother, and we already knew this was going on with their family, and it kind of came down where I got a filtered version of reality, and we go there and it'd be like, "How's it going? Everything's fine." Of course, everything is awesome. It's like that song, "Everything is awesome for everyone," and I'm like, but then we'd have my aunt and uncle, my Aunt Pat and Uncle Dennis. And Uncle Dennis would be like, well, actually, I was hoping you could all pray for me because I'm going through this struggle right now. And he'd just be like flat out put it on the table. And we'd be like, oh, wow, he just gave us personal business to all of us. And I'm like, what? And then my Aunt Pat, and the only reason my uncle was that way because he married, because my Uncle Dennis was a brother to my mom and her sister and other brother, right? So Aunt Pat, though, had married into the family, and she was the foundation. She was the rock. She was the believer. And she would look in your eyes and she'd like grab my face and she'd be like, it's so good to see you. And I was just like, she meant it. She loved everybody with the love of the Lord. And I mean, one time we're in the hospital because she had accidentally dumped she had like some boiling spaghetti and turned around to take it to the sink or whatever. Her daughter was standing there and she dumped it on her daughter and she had it on her daughter. And she was like there comforting everyone else, even though it was her fault that her daughter was in the hospital. And I'm just like, and I remember the first time I went on a missions trip too, because I was going to Brazil. And, they taught us to reach out to everyone you know and ask for some money so it helps support your trip, right? And I'm like, I kind of feel like I don't know if I should ask these people and, they're going to think this or whatever. And I reached out to my Aunt Pat and she donated the most, first of all. And she's like, thank you so much for thinking of me and giving me the ability to partner with you on this trip. Because even though I won't physically be there, I get to sow into this. And, and she was excited. She was excited. I asked her for money. And I'm like, but it's because of her philosophies and her perspective and her faith. And that stuck with me. And that was always there. And I went from thinking she's got to be fake, this can't be real, to, oh my gosh, she is absolutely real. She has more peace and more love in her heart than anybody I've ever met in my life. And now through life, I've been able to meet many, many more people like that. So I can see, the true authenticity of someone like that that's living their life that way.
Well, that's real. You can't fake that. You feel that. And I'm so happy I've had people like that in my life, and then my kids have had people like that in their life. And it's no accident that people are attracted to certain people because it's safe and they're loved unconditionally and not judged. And it's unfortunate, it's rare, but you're creating that with your men's groups. And so that's a beautiful thing. And we're appreciative for that and for your family and generationally. So the legacy question, sort of what's next and what are you looking to leave with the next 50 years?
That's an ongoing story. I'm always like, what am I going to do when I grow up? I still say that. I'm still like, Lord, what's next? And I learned that there's a great Hebrew word called hinene. I think I'm putting a Texas accent on there. It's hineni or hinene, Hineni, I think is how it's spelled. But it's a Hebrew word that was used a few times in the Bible. And it's basically when someone comes before God and they say, here I am, use me. Like I'm a blank slate. If I want to be known for anything, I want to be known as a guy who said yes to God. If God comes and says, drop everything and move to Zimbabwe, of course, that's going to be a hard sell on my wife, but I want to be the guy that says, all right, let's go. We're supposed to go to Zimbabwe. Probably shouldn't be saying that now. I might be speaking that into existence. I don't want to go there, but, I want to be that person, though, that's just like a yes man, that says, here I am, send me. That's to me, that's it right there.
That's a great way to wake up every day. Like, here I am. What great things should I be doing today?
Right. That's daily bread, right? I mean, Jesus taught us exactly how to pray. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us for our sins. We forgive those, trespass against us. So the model is kind of there. And so, if my will for my life can line up with God's will for my life, because I know what he wants for me is better than what I want for myself. So if I can think on the level that he's thinking, then I'm doing good. So I'm trying to just, be that. John 15, where it talks about abide, remain, which means remain in me. He says it like 8 times in 11 verses or something crazy like that. And as long as I can stay locked in and dialed in with what he's got going on, then what more could I want for my life?
Love that. Mark, you have a question or comment?
No, I'm just impressed with your story and impressed being on this podcast with Kelly and some of the amazing people she introduces me to, man. So I'm definitely the guy who didn't have a lot of God in life and probably fought it for many years and kind of ran out of bad crap to do, and then found God in my life. And there's a reason we're all here right now, connected. It's not by mistake, no doubt. So By the way, 49 was the best shape I was in, man. So you're still, that was the best shape. So getting into the 50s is definitely a little bit different. What do you notice in your 50s, Kelly? Because he's kind of in the first couple of years of this thing. Anything you notice different?
I've been so consistent my whole life. I mean, I started this journey when I was 13, and I've stayed about the same size and shape, give or take here or there. And I'm always tweaking things. So as I've gotten older, my supplements have gotten bigger. They've taken up more room on the shelf, and
Yeah.
I'm doing more recovery work with compression sleeves and saunas and cold plunges. And I also have more time right now. My kids are grown and flown, and so it's been fun, but I feel great. I'm, just kind of looking for ways to recover faster and be better and more powerful at this stage. So I'm doing okay, I think.
Chad, I can't keep up with her. She's always on some jet setting trip somewhere. She just can't keep up with this woman. So no doubt. But
She knows everybody, and she's helping tons of people all the time. So
she is helping a lot of
like,
people.
show up here, go here. I'm like, okay, I'm in, because I know if Kelly's doing it, it's going to have some major impact.
Well, thank you. Well, Chad, what's the question that we didn't ask you, or the final thing that you want to leave with our Fit Over 50 Life audience?
I guess I just say, man, welcome to your 50s. I mean, let's just pretend for a second that 100 is the new 30. I mean, maybe you're in the first quarter, you're not in the second or the third quarter, and you've got more wisdom now than you had in your 40s, right? Keep that in mind. We know a lot more than we ever knew before, and there's so much information out there. So if you're going through anything, just find somebody who's an expert in that area and learn from them. My wife turned me on, I can't think of the lady's last name, but we've been listening to this podcast from Dr. Tina. My wife loves Dr. Tina, and now Dr. Tina has helped out so many friends with some weight loss and, like the semaglutide stuff, GLP-1s and all that. And I've been learning a lot about that. And I didn't know that. Another friend of mine owns a peptide company. I mean, did you know you can get the Wolverine peptide, the BPC 157? I mean, what man doesn't want to be a little more like Wolverine and recover, like a superhero, right? I don't think they have the Captain America formulation out yet, but you can get a little Wolverine, maybe a little, maybe Spider-Man and Superman's coming down the pipeline. I don't know, but so I take a little bit of this. I mean, we probably need a little more help in our 50s with supplements and things than we did in our 20s. I mean, the food supply is not as good as it was, and plus our body's just not generating. If you're a man and you're in your 50s and you haven't had your testosterone checked, go check it out. And if you're in your 200s or 300s, don't feel embarrassed or anything to get on TRT. I'm on TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. I do Bioidentical, a franchise here in town. Can't even think what they're called right now, but I go to a little franchise. One of the ones I learned about it because I looked into buying one, and I didn't go that route, but going it's
what do you take? Or you do pellets, or what do you do for
right now? I do shots, but a few friends of mine do pellets, so I'm looking at doing the pellets. I think the pellets.
Okay. Yeah, I just got pellets last Friday, so I've been on and off since my 40s, and it's a game changer. So
yeah,
no doubt. So.
Yeah, so little things like that, but I didn't know. I mean, I was I'm not, I told my wife I'm not doing any shots. I hate shots. I hate needles. And now I give myself 2 shots a week for testosterone. You just got to I'm going to give double red blood on Friday. Your blood gets a little thicker when you have testosterone. So you have to manage that, but whatever it takes, right, to feel good. I mean, I probably feel now on testosterone like maybe some people listening haven't felt since their 20s. So you could go and start this and feel like you're in your late 20s, early 30s again. So why not, right? So I would just say learn the things. Find someone like me with Shahid, my personal trainer in the gym. I saw him working out, I went over there and go, dude, I'm Chad. I'm Shahid. I'm like, what are you doing to look like that, man? He's like, oh, I got to eat a certain way, work out a certain way. I'm like, would you teach me? I mean, you ever been in Walmart and you see like a mom with 4 or 5 kids and they all have their hand on the cart and they're all obeying, they're listening. It's like, are they from this planet? Right? Well, maybe just ask them and say, can I buy you lunch? Anytime anyone asks me if they can buy me lunch, I've always said yes, every time. Doesn't matter who it is. So pretty much they're going to tell you the same thing. Go sit down, buy them lunch, pick their brain. They owe you, man. You just paid for their lunch. They should answer any question you have for a good hour. And they'll tell you, yeah, I learned this. I read this book. I took this course. I learned how to, the 8 steps of parenting. And you're like, 8 steps? What the heck's that? And they say, here's step 1, step 2, step 3. And you implement it and you're like, your kids change overnight. I'm going through a Bible study now with some guys. It's called Every Man a Warrior. And we just finished book 1, which is Walking with God. Book 2 is all about parenting and having a great marriage. And then the third book goes through, making your life count, going through hard times. Just it's a really good study because it reaches men like 90% of what you're dealing with right today, day in, day out. And it walks you through it all. So we just finished book 1, getting ready to go into book 2.
I got a question. Maybe if we could, before we wrap this up. So what is it you notice? And I don't think we really addressed this. We kind of skirted around it. What is it that guys say to guys that they can't share with anybody else? Because I think there's a lot that goes on in a man's head when they have to compartmentalize things, be problem solvers, that they can't share with sometimes women or other people. And what's the one thing you would say that you've noticed, if there is one thing that's common that you could share? Because maybe somebody's listening or watching this right now, and maybe this one thing you share could be something that they've been struggling with and they have nobody to tell it to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the first thing I'll say is there's men, I'd say majority of men probably go through their entire lives and not share their deepest, darkest inner things with anyone else, their wife, their family, anybody. And man, it's so important too, because that's a battle that needs to be fought with friends, And so I'll tell you some of the groups, and this is the 5th time I've gone through this particular Bible study with men, and the very, very best groups we've had are the ones where men are fully transparent. Because if you can be vulnerable and you can be transparent. When you're vulnerable and transparent, basically what it means is that person you're telling could use that information against you to hurt you. So it's a deep place of trust. It's very, very difficult for a lot of men to get to that place of trust. But what I would recommend for everybody listening right now is to find a person. I call it a group of 5. Like I have a group of 5 guys and the different guys I go to for different things. But like if it's something I'm challenging, I'm going through with my wife, I'm going to call like this friend. If it's something I'm going through with my kids, I'm going to call this friend. If it's something I'm going through that's, a challenge that I'm mentally kind of battling with, I'm going to possibly call another friend. So just to have those, and it could just be one guy that you share everything with, that you really look up to, that, you trust deeply. But, it comes with a lot of things. I mean, porn is an example. Porn is a huge, huge thing that a lot of men battle with. And you got to be able to share that struggle with someone so they can come alongside with you and help walk you through it. It's so important.
And I think there's a lot of things, like you just said, porn, that men can't share with, other people, only other men. One of those things I kind of believe is that you're a guy, and, the persona of men in this culture is that shut up, do your job, deliver for your family, put the hard work in, don't complain, don't be depressed, don't be this. And guys have been bottled up for so darn long. And I think, having a voice to say it to somebody, and like you said, be authentic, makes all the difference in the world. Because sometimes they can't share that with their partner or another woman or whatever it may be, for the reasons that you mentioned about it getting thrown back in their face, which is never the best thing, because being vulnerable is not easy. We've all grown up in a culture. I mean, I grew up in a silent culture. I mean, my dad never shared anything. So
I'll share one story that kind of brings us home, just to really help men understand the importance of this. So remember one day, just a random day or whatever, I was watching, I'm a Cardinals fan, St. Louis Cardinals fan. I like to watch baseball, right? So I'm watching the Cardinals game, and my daughter comes in, and she was probably only like 10 at the time. And she's like, I think it was a Friday. And she's like, Dad, can we do a family movie tonight? And I'm like, of course. Yeah, I'd love to do a family movie. And she's like, can we watch it now? And I'm like, well, I'm watching the game. When the game's over here in a couple hours, we'll do a family movie. And she's like, okay, cool. You know how kids are. So 10 minutes later comes back, Dad, can we start now? And I'm like, honey, no, we already discussed this. I already said I'm going to finish the game, we'll watch the family movie later. And she asked like another time. And then I think the 3rd or 4th time she asked, I just lose it. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. You just asked. And I can't believe you're asking again. And my wife's like, whoa, honey. She just asked. And the Cardinals, it was ridiculous. They were winning like 8-1 or something. And I'm like, the game's pretty much going to be won. I could have easily just been like, sure. But now my wife's involved. So I get up like acting like a 2-year-old, I'm like handing the remote over. I'm like, you guys watch whatever the heck family movie you want. I'm going to go upstairs and watch the game. So I stomp out of there, and then about 5 minutes later, I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me? Right. Well, it was maybe a month later. I was at this men's retreat, and these guys were talking about how as men and women too, we leak our trauma onto the people that we love the most. And I remember sitting there and I had this moment with God, and I was just like, oh my gosh, because the date when I was watching that game was a couple days after what would have been my brother who committed suicide's birthday. And so I was dealing, and I remember because my parents always, they post online and stuff. And I remember I read, and I hadn't dealt with anything with that. And so I just read that post, and it reminds me of them, like angry. How could he be so selfish, sad, all coming back up? I could have done this and this and this to help it not happen, just run back through all that again, all that emotional stuff again. I hadn't really fully dealt with it. And so because I hadn't dealt with it, I lashed out to my daughter, who's 10, just wants to watch a movie with her dad. And she's like, why are we watching this silly baseball game? Why is dad the only one who wants to watch the games, taking up the whole living room watching the game, right? And so after that, I was like, oh my gosh. And I had to go back and, I apologized to my wife and my daughter, and help explain to them, this is what it was. I was leaking my trauma inadvertently, unintentionally, didn't even know it, leaking my trauma onto my family. And I'm like, any man here, I'm sure you don't want to leak your trauma, stuff that happened in the past. It's not your wife's fault. It's not your kid's fault. You don't want to leak that on them. So deal with it. And sometimes dealing with it means opening up. Call the pastor, call your friend up and just, let it all out. Whatever it is, whatever that trauma is, it's holding you back. It's robbing your wife. It's robbing your kids. It's robbing your future because you're stuck in that area, and it's leaking on the poison. It's leaking. It's kind of like unforgiveness. The idea of unforgiveness in the Roman times, if you murdered someone, you had to literally strap the dead person to your back. And eventually the whatever happens from the dead body being attached to your body, it comes in and it affects you and you die. So forgive the I don't care what they did. Forgive them, not for them, but they're not thinking about you anymore. Let it go for your own peace, for your own happiness, for your own family. So important. So I would say anybody listening, man, you gotta deal with it. You just gotta deal with it.
So much truth there. What is the people who are the close to us, unfortunately, a lot of times they do get the worst of us because we don't bring the things that are in the darkness out into the light. And until they're in the light, they can't get healed. So I love that, especially you brought up porn for men. I know that's a big deal. It's got to be brought into the light. It's never going to heal in the dark or by yourself.
Absolutely.
Great way to finish. I love that.
Hey, Chad, St. Louis, huh? How do they always end up in the damn World Series? I don't know, man. So last weekend I went to see the Yankees here in Florida play against Miami. Miami, as you know, swept them. It was literally I've seen better AAA teams, and I've been a Yankee fan since 1978. I've been, to World Series with the Fab Five and all that stuff. Just horrific team. So, I think I need to pray about the Yankees to win, and I don't think that's even going to help at this point. But you guys always end up in the World Series. You're always low key, and St. Louis always ends up in some kind of. They will have Kelly. I don't know if you noticed, the Cardinals have almost as many World Series wins as the Yankees do, right?
They do.
What is it,
It's 11.
And nobody talks about them.
13 or. My best friend's a Yankees fan. It's funny because, we live here in Houston. So he's always like the Houston, just the Yankee destroyers. And,
They did a job on him for sure. So, well, they're not getting any of my bandwidth this year, so we're too busy. So,
hey, I don't care who you are, though. You got to love Judge, man. He's just a phenomenal
Judge is
guy
great.
Phenomenal dude.
He's your one of a kind, generational player that comes along. So for sure, he is fun to watch, no doubt. He's so huge, man. I mean, God, he's just a big boy.
You ever see him stand next to Altuve? It's funny. Altuve is like 5'4", and Judge is like, what is he, like 6'6" or something?
6'7", I think. 6'6", 6'7". Yeah. It's definitely. When he stands next to his wife too, his wife looks like she needs some platform shoes or something. So, but she's so cute with him. Very good for baseball though.
Oh yeah.
Him. So, All right, Kelly, we're going to take this at the hell at 50. We're going to talk about baseball for the next hour here. So, okay, so no trauma, no nothing. Let's just talk sports. Okay, so.
Well, Chad, we want to thank you for being so real and so generous. And we do want people to connect with you. We want them to get the book and to go to websites, social media. So tell us where they should go to find all your great things.
Yeah, so there's not too many Knellers in the world. It's spelled Kneller. It's not Kneller. And everyone should know that. Okay. So you can find me with Chad Kneller on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, all the things. And then you can get the book. If you you can buy it on Amazon, cheaper. I think there's some third party. You can do Audible, Kindle, all that kind of stuff. But if you go to www.findinghappybook.com, those ship straight from my house. So I'll sign it for you or for anyone you want me to sign it for and send that right to your house. So that's the best way to get in contact with me.
Love it. Well, Chad, we know our over 50 Life listeners are walking away with a lot today, not just inspired, but with real tools to start creating happiness, health, joy, prosperity, and just how to create a great legacy. So thank you so much for your time and sharing with us today.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Chad, you definitely walk the walk, talk the talk. You're one of the most authentic people we've had on this show so far. That is not stroking your ego. I just try to keep it as real as possible. Gang, go out there and get this book. Find some happiness in your life. Find some peace in your life. Learn, and that could take your life to the next level. In the meantime, thank you all for plugging in today. Hopefully you all got something out of this episode you could apply to your life and live a healthier lifestyle, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye-bye now.